how humanity's weakness defeated a sonic alien armada. The patrol ship Resonance drifted through the void between stars, its hull gleaming dully under the distant light of Kepler 442. Captain Kael Serin stood on the bridge, watching the endless expanse of space through the main viewport. 3 years into their deep space patrol mission, the routine had become almost meditative, until today. "Captain," Lieutenant Sarah Kim's voice cut through the bridge's ambient hum, her fingers dancing across the communications console. "I'm picking up something unusual. Multiple contacts, bearing 27 Mark IV. Serin moved to her station, his weathered face creasing with concern. At 42, he'd seen enough of the galaxy's surprises to know that unusual rarely meant good news. "What kind of contacts?" "That's just it, sir. They're not showing up on our standard sensors. I'm only detecting them through passive acoustic monitoring like they're singing." From the engineering station, Pavel Volkov looked up from his diagnostic readouts. The burly Russian's thick eyebrows furrowed as he ran additional scans. "Acoustic signatures are off the charts, Captain. Whatever they are, they're generating massive sound waves across multiple frequency ranges." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Serin had encountered 17 different alien species during his career, but none that communicated primarily through sound. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and terrors in equal measure, and humanity was still learning its place among the stars. "Put it on speakers, Lieutenant," Serin ordered. Sarah's fingers hesitated over the controls. "Sir, the frequency patterns are intense. I'm not sure our audio systems can handle the full spectrum without damage." "Filter it down to human audible range then. Let's hear what we're dealing with." The bridge filled with an otherworldly symphony haunting melodies that seemed to carry meaning beyond mere sound. The tones rose and fell in complex patterns, creating harmonies that made the crew's skin crawl with their alien beauty. Yet something felt wrong about the music, as if it carried an underlying threat. "My God," Sarah whispered, her face pale. "Captain, I think they're trying to communicate." Before Serin could respond, the ship's proximity alarm screamed to life. On the main display, space itself seemed to shimmer as massive forms materialized, not ships in any conventional sense, but geometric structures that pulsed with visible sound waves. The sonoric had arrived. Engineer Volkov's console erupted in warnings. "Captain, they're targeting us with some kind of directed energy, but it's not electromagnetic. It's pure acoustic force." The first wave hit the resonance like a tsunami of sound. The hull groaned and vibrated as frequencies beyond human perception hammered against the ship's structure. In the engineering sections, sensitive equipment began to malfunction as harmonic resonances threatened to tear the vessel apart. "Shields up," Serin barked, gripping his command chair as the ship shuddered. "Shields are holding, but barely," Volkov reported, sweat beading on his forehead. "These aren't energy weapons, Captain. They're using sound itself as a weapon, frequencies that can disrupt molecular bonds." The second wave was different. Instead of targeting the ship's hull, the alien attack focused on something far more insidious. Sarah suddenly doubled over at her station, clutching her head as if in agony. "Something's wrong. I can feel it in my skull, like my brain is vibrating." But then, as quickly as it had begun, her distress faded. She looked up in confusion, her hands still pressed to her temples. I'm okay. The sensation just stopped." Across the bridge, the crew exchanged bewildered glances. They should have been writhing in agony, their nervous systems shattered by the sonic assault. Instead, they felt nothing more than a mild discomfort, like standing too close to a powerful speaker. Pavel's engineering training kicked in first. "Captain, I think I understand what's happening. Human hearing only covers roughly 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. These aliens, they're attacking on frequencies we literally cannot perceive." The revelation struck Serin like a bolt of lightning. Throughout human history, their limited sensory range had often been seen as a disadvantage compared to other Earth species. Dogs could hear ultrasonic frequencies, elephants communicated through infrasound, and countless creatures possessed sensory abilities that dwarfed human capabilities. But here, in the depths of space, that very limitation had become their salvation. "They don't know," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder and growing confidence. "They have no idea that we can't hear most of their attack frequencies." The sonoric vessels continued their assault, pouring devastating sonic energy toward the resonance. Their weapons were designed to target the auditory processing centers of intelligent life, overwhelming neural pathways with frequencies that would drive most species into madness or death. But humans, with their narrow band of acoustic perception, remained largely unaffected. Serin's mind raced through tactical possibilities. If the aliens assumed all intelligent life shared their vulnerability to sonic attacks, they might have left themselves exposed to conventional weapons. "Pavel, what's our weapons status?" "All systems operational, Captain. But our standard plasma cannons might not be effective against targets that exist partially as sound waves." "Then we need to fight fire with fire," Serin declared. "Sarah, can you analyze their communication patterns, find their base frequencies?" Lieutenant Kim's fingers flew across her console, her communications training finally finding purpose in this bizarre first contact scenario. "I'm detecting primary harmonic signatures across multiple bands. Captain, they're not just communicating through sound, they are sound, at least partially. Living acoustic waveforms." The implications were staggering. The sonoric had evolved as beings of living sound, their consciousness existing as complex frequency patterns. To them, the universe was a symphony of acoustic information, and they naturally assumed all intelligent life would share their sonic-based existence. "Pavel, I need you to work with Sarah," Serin ordered, his tactical mind already formulating a plan. "If these beings exist as sound waves, then we should be able to disrupt them with counter-frequencies, acoustic interference patterns that could destabilize their forms." The Russian engineer nodded grimly, moving to the communication station. His thick fingers, more accustomed to plasma conduits and fusion reactors, began working alongside Sarah's delicate touch on the frequency modulators. "If we can generate precise counterharmonics, we might be able to create destructive interference patterns." "Like noise-canceling headphones but weaponized," Sarah added, her excitement growing as she understood the concept. The resonance shuddered under another sonic barrage, but the crew worked with desperate efficiency. They had perhaps minutes before the aliens realized their primary weapons were ineffective and switched to more conventional attacks. The element of surprise was their greatest asset. "I'm detecting 17 distinct harmonic signatures from their formation," Sarah reported. "Each vessel seems to operate on a different base frequency, but they're all harmonically related like a massive chord progression." Pavel's engineering expertise proved invaluable as he began calculating the precise counter-frequencies needed. "We'll need to modulate our communications array to generate acoustic waves at exactly 180 degrees out of phase with their base harmonics. The destructive interference should destabilize their quantum acoustic matrices." It was theoretical physics pushed to its absolute limit, but desperation bred innovation. As the sonoric continued their futile assault, the human crew worked to turn their own limitations into weapons. "Counter-frequency generators online," Pavel announced, his voice tight with concentration, "targeting the lead vessel's harmonic signature." "Fire," Serin commanded. The resonance unleashed its acoustic counterstrike, not visible energy beams or explosive missiles, but precisely calculated sound waves designed to cancel out the alien's existence. The effect was immediate and devastating. The lead sonoric vessel began to shimmer and distort as its harmonic structure collapsed. What had been a coherent being of living sound suddenly became chaotic noise, its consciousness scattered across the electromagnetic spectrum. Within seconds, the massive geometric form simply ceased to exist, its acoustic matrix disrupted beyond recovery. "Target destroyed," Sarah shouted, her voice filled with disbelief and triumph. But the remaining sonoric vessels were learning. Their attacks shifted, becoming more focused and intense as they tried to compensate for their weapons' apparent ineffectiveness. The aliens' confusion was palpable in their increasingly frantic frequency modulations. "They're trying to communicate with us," Sarah reported, monitoring the alien transmissions. "The frequency patterns are becoming more complex. I think they're attempting to establish a dialogue." Serin considered the tactical situation. The humans held a significant advantage, but destroying an entire alien fleet would hardly establish peaceful relations. "Can you respond to them, Lieutenant? Let them know we're not affected by their weapons." Sarah's training in xenolinguistics, limited though it was, proved crucial. She began modulating the ship's communications array to generate simple harmonic patterns, mathematical progressions, that any sound-based intelligence should recognize as artificial and intentional. The response was immediate. The sonoric attacks ceased, replaced by complex musical phrases that seemed to carry emotional undertones of confusion and curiosity. For beings who existed as living sound, the discovery of a species immune to their primary form of communication and warfare must have been profoundly shocking. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder, "I think they're trying to understand how we can function without full-spectrum acoustic perception. To them, we must seem like beings operating with a severe sensory disability." The irony wasn't lost on Serin. Throughout human history, they had often felt inferior to other species with enhanced senses. Yet here, their very limitations had saved them from destruction and given them a unique advantage in first contact with a truly alien intelligence. Pavel had been monitoring the alien vessel's structural patterns during the brief engagement. "Captain, their technology is fascinating. They've essentially weaponized sound itself, creating coherent acoustic fields that can manipulate matter at the molecular level. If we could understand their principles." "One step at a time, engineer," Serin cautioned. "First, we need to establish that we're not a threat." The communication exchange continued for nearly an hour, with Sarah gradually building a rudimentary translation matrix based on harmonic relationships. The sonoric language was unlike anything in human experience, a three-dimensional symphony, where meaning was conveyed through the interaction of multiple frequency layers. Slowly, a picture emerged of the alien perspective. The sonoric had evolved on a world where acoustic communication was the primary sense, developing technology and society based entirely on sound manipulation. They had encountered dozens of other species in their expansion across the galaxy, all of whom shared their vulnerability to sonic disruption. To the sonoric, the use of frequency-based weapons wasn't an act of aggression. It was simply the most efficient way to disable potential threats. They had no concept that intelligent life could exist with such limited acoustic perception as humans possessed. "They're apologizing," Sarah announced, her voice filled with amazement. "The harmonic patterns indicate regret and confusion. They had no idea that their weapons wouldn't affect us." The lead sonoric vessel began transmitting a complex musical phrase that Sarah's translation matrix interpreted as a formal greeting and request for peaceful dialogue. The aliens were as curious about humanity as the humans were about them. "Captain," Pavel interjected, "their technology could revolutionize our understanding of acoustic engineering, and our immunity to their weapons could be valuable to other species they've encountered." Serin nodded thoughtfully. The tactical implications were significant, but so were the diplomatic opportunities. Humanity had just demonstrated that their perceived weaknesses could become strengths in the right circumstances, a lesson that would resonate throughout their future expansion into the galaxy. Sarah, transmit our peaceful intentions and request permission to establish formal diplomatic contact. Pavel, prepare a full technical report on their acoustic weapons and our counter-frequency systems. As the resonance and the sonoric fleet began the delicate process of first contact, Serin reflected on the day's events. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the simple accident of their evolutionary limitations. The following hours brought revelations that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galactic community. The sonoric, once they understood human acoustic limitations, were fascinated by the concept of a species that could function effectively with such restricted sensory input. Through Sarah's growing translation capabilities, they learned that the sonoric had encountered over 30 intelligent species in their expansion across local star systems. All had possessed acoustic perception ranges far exceeding human capabilities, making them vulnerable to the frequency-based technologies that the sonoric had developed. They're offering to share their star charts, Sarah reported, her excitement barely contained. Captain, they've mapped dozens of systems with intelligent life. They want to warn other species about our unique capabilities. Pavel looked up from his engineering analysis. Their acoustic technology is centuries ahead of anything we've developed. With their cooperation, we could revolutionize everything from medical imaging to industrial manufacturing. But Serin was thinking beyond immediate technological benefits. Lieutenant, ask them about the species they've encountered. Are any of them hostile? Do they pose threats to human expansion? The response was sobering. The sonoric transmitted detailed harmonic records of their encounters with various alien civilizations. Many were peaceful, but several had proven aggressive or territorial. The galaxy was far more dangerous than humanity had realized, filled with species whose capabilities and motivations remained largely unknown. They're offering an alliance, Sarah announced after a particularly complex exchange of musical phrases. The sonoric want to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. They see our acoustic immunity as a valuable strategic asset. The strategic implications were staggering. Humanity's limited hearing range, long considered a disadvantage, had suddenly become a unique defensive capability. In a galaxy where many species relied on acoustic communication and technology, humans could operate in environments that would be hostile or impossible for other intelligences. Captain, Pavel said, his engineering mind already racing through possibilities. If we can refine our counter-frequency weapons, we could provide defensive capabilities to other species threatened by the sonoric's acoustic technologies. Not just defensive, Serin realized. We could serve as mediators in conflicts involving sound-based species. Our immunity makes us natural peacekeepers in acoustic warfare scenarios. The sonoric had inadvertently revealed humanity's potential role in galactic politics. As a species immune to frequency-based attacks, humans could serve as neutral parties in conflicts involving acoustic technologies. Their very limitations made them uniquely qualified for diplomatic missions that would be impossible for other species. Sarah's translation matrix had grown sophisticated enough to convey complex concepts, and she began explaining human history and culture to the fascinated aliens. The sonoric were particularly intrigued by human music, which they perceived as a primitive but charming attempt at acoustic art. They want to collaborate on musical compositions, Sarah reported with a laugh. Apparently, our limited frequency range creates harmonic patterns they've never encountered before. The cultural exchange that followed was unlike anything in human experience. The sonoric shared acoustic art forms that existed in frequency ranges completely beyond human perception, while humans demonstrated the emotional power of their limited spectrum music. Pavel worked with sonoric engineers to understand their acoustic manipulation technologies, discovering principles that could revolutionize human engineering. The aliens, in turn, were amazed by human visual and tactile technologies, which they had never developed due to their sound-based evolution. "Captain," Sarah said during one of the translation sessions, "they're asking about our defensive strategies against other threats. They want to know how we protect ourselves from species with enhanced visual or electromagnetic capabilities." It was a sobering reminder that humanity's acoustic immunity was just one advantage among many potential vulnerabilities. The galaxy contained species with capabilities that could exploit human weaknesses just as effectively as humans had exploited sonoric assumptions. "Tell them we're still learning," Serin replied honestly. "This encounter has taught us that our limitations can be strengths, but we need to understand all the threats we might face." The sonoric response was immediate and generous. They began transmitting detailed information about every species they had encountered, including their capabilities, technologies, and potential threat levels. It was an intelligence windfall that would guide human expansion for generations. As the formal diplomatic protocols concluded, both species had gained far more than they had initially expected. The sonoric had discovered a potential ally immune to their primary weapons systems, while humanity had gained access to advanced acoustic technologies and crucial intelligence about galactic civilizations. "They're proposing joint exploration missions," Sarah reported. "Sonoric acoustic sensors combined with human visual and electromagnetic detection systems could provide unprecedented survey capabilities." Pavel nodded enthusiastically. "And our combined defensive systems would be nearly impregnable. Their acoustic weapons could disable most threats, while our immunity protects us from similar attacks." Serin approved the preliminary alliance agreements, knowing that formal ratification would require approval from Earth Command. But the strategic value was undeniable. Humanity had found its first true alien allies, and the partnership promised mutual benefits that could reshape both civilizations. The Resonance began its journey back to human space, accompanied by a sonoric diplomatic vessel whose haunting songs filled the void between stars. The crew had left Earth as a routine patrol mission, and were returning as the architects of humanity's first major galactic alliance. As the ship entered hyperspace, Serin stood on the bridge contemplating the day's events. They had faced annihilation and emerged not just victorious, but with new allies and unprecedented opportunities for human advancement. "Captain," Sarah said, approaching his position near the main viewport, "I've been thinking about what happened today. We won because of what we couldn't do, not what we could. Sometimes our greatest strengths come from our apparent weaknesses," Serin replied. "The sonoric taught us that limitations can be advantages if we understand how to use them." Pavel joined them, his engineering report complete. "The acoustic principles we've learned could revolutionize human technology, but more importantly, we've proven that humanity has a unique role to play in galactic civilization." The implications extended far beyond military applications. Humanity's acoustic immunity made them natural mediators in conflicts involving sound-based species, while their visual and electromagnetic technologies could complement the capabilities of acoustic civilizations like the sonoric. "We're not the strongest species in the galaxy," Serin observed, "or the most advanced, but we might be the most adaptable. Our limitations force us to find creative solutions that other species might never consider." The Resonance continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying news that would transform humanity's understanding of their galactic destiny. They had encountered their first truly alien intelligence and emerged not as conquerors or victims, but as partners in a relationship that promised mutual growth and protection. The sonoric had assumed that all intelligent life shared their acoustic vulnerabilities, just as humans had assumed their sensory limitations, were universal weaknesses. Both species had learned that diversity of capability could be a source of strength rather than division. Sarah's final transmission to Earth Command summarized the encounter with characteristic precision. First contact successful. Human auditory limitations provided unexpected defensive advantage against acoustic-based alien weapons. Formal alliance established with sonoric civilization. Recommend immediate development of counter-frequency weapon systems and acoustic immunity protocols for future encounters. But the real message was deeper than tactical reports could convey. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not despite their limitations, but because of them. In a universe filled with species possessing enhanced senses and advanced capabilities, humans offered something unique, the ability to function effectively within constraints that would cripple other intelligences. The patrol ship Resonance had left Earth as a minor vessel on a routine mission. It was returning as the herald of a new age, carrying proof that humanity's perceived weaknesses could become their greatest strengths in the vast symphony of galactic civilization. As the stars wheeled past the viewport, Captain Kael Serin smiled. The universe was vast and filled with wonders beyond human imagination, but humanity had proven they belonged among the stars, not as the strongest or most advanced species, but as the ones who could find opportunity in limitation and strength in apparent weakness. The sound of their engines hummed through the ship's hull, a frequency perfectly audible to human ears, but meaningless to the sonoric who communicated in ranges far beyond human perception. It was a reminder that every species brought unique capabilities to the galactic community, and that true strength came from understanding and embracing those differences. In the depths of space, the Resonance carried its crew home, their mission transformed from routine patrol to historic first contact. They had faced the unknown and emerged victorious, proving that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't superior technology or enhanced senses. It was their ability to adapt, survive, and find strength in the very limitations that others might consider weaknesses. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges yet to come, but humanity had taken its first step toward claiming its place among the stars, armed with the knowledge that sometimes the best defense against the impossible was simply being unable to perceive it at all. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing for more journeys. Share your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for the next adventure.